Question arises, which always arises at a G7 meeting, what can they do beyond just being a talking club of the world's most powerful economies? Well, what they're hoping to do, and the main thing is message sending, showing solidarity, showing support for Ukraine in its time of dire need. You have a situation in which Volodymyr Zelensky, who is expected to address this conference in the coming days via a video link from Kiev, he's essentially going cap in hand to the West, begging for more and heavier weapons. Whether or not the West will supply them, that's not up to the G7 to decide. At the end of the day, this is not a military alliance. That falls to NATO and its allies. What the G7 can do, though, is tamp down some of the financing, some of the financial help, mostly on the food security front, but also getting the financing that Ukraine will need desperately for its reconstruction. The figures keep soaring on how much it will cost to rebuild Ukraine. It's now at least $600 billion and counting. So what they want is for the G7 to put its money where its mouth is, to show support for Ukraine. It's really a credibility litmus test for these world leaders, because even as their economies are weakened and threatened by the fallout, by the sanctions they've imposed, Ukraine needs them more than ever to show that they can stay the course in what is expected to be a very long and drawn-out conflict.
And Doug, G7 leaders, they'll also be under pressure to act on those soaring energy, food prices. What's on the agenda?
Well, listen, going into this, the World Food Program is basically warning the G7 that 2022, this year, is going to bring record food insecurity. And why? Well, surprise, surprise. It's because of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. What we're seeing is that war adding to the already existing dire food crisis brought about by COVID, the pandemic, obviously, the climate emergency, soaring food and fuel costs. Add a war in there. You have basically the perfect storm for everything that can go wrong to go wrong on the food front. You have tens of millions of tons of grain essentially blocked in Ukraine's ports right now. Why? Well, there's no secret. Russian warships are preventing them from getting out to the markets that need them most, especially in Africa. Once again, World Food Program, don't listen to me, listen to their statistics. They say that 50 million people in 45 countries, most of them in sub-Saharan Africa, are facing the possibility of imminent starvation. Food security is not abstract. It's not something way out there for next month or next year. It is happening right now. They need to solve it, and they're calling upon the G7 leaders to do something, anything, to open the Black Sea ports of Ukraine to get that needed food out of those ports and to the people who need it most.